Let's keep that real.
Yes.
Keep it real. She's not very happy.
In what world would it be the caterer's idea?
Exactly, man. Let's get to one more story, guys. This is a little bit serious, and I had no idea this was happening. R&B singer Trey Songz, he's been accused of sexual assault. This is in 2016, first of all, been accused of sexual assault there. But there's a video that has surfaced from 2013, as you're seeing here to my left here, of Trey Songz exposing a woman's breast at a party. Let's watch that first to see how this all started off.
I won't take a picture. I'm starting to tire. City in the open. City in the open. I'm starting to tire. It's okay.
Fun times at a party. Snatch a woman's top off and scream about it. So TMZ obtained that video of the incident, and it seemingly shows that the singer approached the woman at the party. And again, this occurred in August of 2013 and pulled down her top to expose her breast and then screamed how fun and happy he was about that. Now, her attorneys, I think her name is Megan Johnson. Johnson's attorneys, George Vrabic and Ariel Mitchell, have issued a demand letter on their client's behalf asking for a settlement that exceeds $5 million over this. I'm sure this letter does not come as a surprise to you, is what the message to Trey Songz reads. One woman may have been mistaken, but it's unlikely that 12 plus women that have made complaints about you, including our 4 clients, were also mistaken. Ms. Johnson is certainly not mistaken. Perhaps the enclosed video will refresh your recollection and illustrate the certainty of your negligent and reckless behavior. Again, they included that video that we just saw, and you're seeing about this 12 plus other accusations and 4 clients of their own. This is where I was like, what? So apparently this isn't the first time that he's been accused of things like this, and potentially worse if you can find a scale when it comes to this type of stuff. But he's accused of sexual assault in the 2016 case that I was talking about earlier. So according to the documents that were obtained by TMZ, again, Trey Songz has been named in a $20 million lawsuit filed by a woman who has claimed that he anally raped her. The woman alleges that he invited her to a house party in LA, where he invited her upstairs for what she believed would be consensual sex. She says the two of them had engaged in a consensual sexual relationship prior to this particular incident. She then claims that he repeatedly asked her if he could, quote, get that ass on the way upstairs, to which she said she reportedly told him no and to stop asking. She claims she screamed in pain and begged him to stop and tried fighting him off, but that she was overpowered. There's other examples here because these attorneys for Ms. Johnson apparently outlined and detailed other issues that happened in the past with him, the accusations that he has denied and hasn't dealt with as far as court-wise. But now there's video. I wonder how much that's gonna change here.
No, it's terrifying. I mean, just the allegations alone. And I think what happens in a lot of these cases, and we've seen this with a lot of predators and especially famous ones, which is when victims find out that they are part of a pattern, and oftentimes that information can be kept from them because they are not told if there's another police report, or they don't feel like they want to file any charges because they think, maybe I was in the wrong, maybe it was a one-off, maybe it was whatever. And when you start to see other people speak out, it makes you re-reflect on actually just how messed up your own situation was. And I think that's really important. So and I think a lot of victims say the same thing. A lot of survivors say the same thing, which is basically, I don't want this to happen to other people. I don't want this to keep happening because the more impunity that there is among predators, the more they're gonna keep on doing it. And you got 12 plus allegations, including some of that awful rape allegation. Like it's, we can only imagine how many more there are.
And we can only imagine how many more outside of the ones that said so, as you point out, because there's courage in that. And then people may have seen that video and be like, well, she was smiling, everyone's laughing at the party. Right. It seems like she's okay with it. You're gonna take the look on the face of a woman who just got violated like that in front of all these folks, and you heard one of the guys say, don't worry, I didn't take a picture, I didn't take a picture. And you're supposed to feel okay with that? You're supposed to be like, oh, I mean, he was just having fun and I was having fun too, really? That's just not enough to go off of. And I'm sure you've, of course, experienced anything where people wanna degrade you and you're supposed to be cool with it, but when you're laughing, it doesn't mean you're cool with it.
No.
Last thought?
No matter, you could be straight up naked. She could be a naked woman. You do not have to touch her. You do not have the right to touch her without her consent, period. It doesn't matter. Hello, let's learn about consent. That's it.
Absolutely. And the fact it's 9 years ago, fine. I know that's gonna be the thought, but we'll move on. That does it for Friday's show. I hate to end on such a sour note, but sometimes it happens that way. Thank you again, Francesca, for joining us. You're awesome. That baby's gonna be great too. I can't wait. I'm so excited. But up next is John Iadarola in the Damage Report. I believe Brett Erlich's on for some garbage people. That's always fun on a Friday. We'll see you guys after the weekend for a fabulous Monday. We'll catch you later.
Hello and welcome back to another episode here at The Damage Report. I am John Iadarola. Today is an exciting day, as 1/5 of all days on the show are, because it's a Friday, which means we have Brett Erlich. Brett, how's it going?
Oh, I'm so happy to be here in the neighborhood, just hanging out. Gonna close all these other windows so I can focus on my dear friend John Iadarola.
Probably good. You know what? You are reliable. I can rely on you to focus on our show several seconds into the show, not in anticipation of it or anything like that, but that's something we have.
At the very least, it was related to what we were talking about beforehand. So it's not like I was on the Rust server we just set up for TYT, which everyone can experience this evening on Game Busters.
Oh, so you're going to be launching back into Rust. Now, how exactly would a Rust game be busted?
I don't know, but essentially we are trying to embark on a new journey where we are setting up our own society according to rules we lay out for ourselves to see what happens. The TYT utopia.
A utopia? Tune in and find out.
Yeah, well, there's definitely random military installations we can't take out of the game. So if you go to those, you get shot. But everything else, you can run around naked. It's up to you.
Nice. Anyway, so you can tune in to Rust Busters later on tonight. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Here on the show, we've got a lot to look forward to, including when we close out, we have an errand to do. One of our chores, I guess. Hold on one sec.
Oh no, John.
The garbage has to be thrown away. And I'm excited because I have a very simple garbage person. Some might say a very petty garbage person, but it's something I've been holding in my back pocket for a few days, and I need to talk for a minute about it. So stay tuned to the end of the show to get to that. Along the way, we got a lot that we're gonna be talking about. Not only Kevin McCarthy and all these videos that are popping up and making him look ridiculous, devastating injustice in the so-called justice system. What did Greg Abbott actually accomplish at the border? And some, I'm gonna say for legal reasons, very suspicious coincidences going on around Russia and their invasion of Ukraine. So a lot to look forward to. Also, a little update on that Bernie Sanders bombshell that dropped earlier this week. So everyone, I'm gonna need you to hold on to your butts as we launch into that. Also, hit the like button. So release one hand from the butt to click the like button so that people know we're live. And if you wanna send us super chats, comments, tweets, all that, we'll respond as we go. But with that said, Brett, are you ready to talk about the news?
Yeah, let's do it, John.
Okay, let's definitely do it. Actually, right before we launch into that, I will say a lot of people are already messaging me. Sophie, it's gonna be okay. Messaging me like, Marjorie's in court. No, she is, but it's like we're live. We can't track it live. So we'll be taking a look at what happens, I'm sure, on other shows, on the main show. Trust me, I know that she's in court.
And for raw footage, as soon as we have it, go to youtube.com/TYT investigates reports. Don't look at me like that. TYT investigates reports, because Josh DePeel, former intern for the Damage Report, is cutting little clippies up to put on throughout the day. He's already on it. So that's a great place to go for that and other supplements to things we'll have later in the show. So there you go.
Well, that is awesome. I see actually, yeah, they've got some stuff that's been uploaded just recently. So everybody look into that. Okay, now with that said, now, so that Sophie doesn't kill me, let's jump into this.
Liz, you on the phone?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Kevin. I guess there's a question. When we were talking about the 25th Amendment resolution,
Yeah.
and you asked if what happens if it gets there after he's gone. Is there any chance? Are you hearing that he might resign? Is there any reason to think that might happen?
I've had some few discussions. My gut tells me no. I'm seriously thinking of having that conversation with him tonight. I haven't talked to him in a couple days.
So that is Kevin McCarthy. Way back in January of last year in audio that was released just in the last day, and the video that you just saw right there came from Rachel Maddow's show. Now, this video is important not only for the content in that Liz Cheney and Kevin McCarthy are talking about the possibility of invoking or encouraging the invocation of the 25th Amendment, which would have removed Donald Trump from power. But the mere presence of the video is significant, because it comes about after a fun little back and forth that we're gonna dive into it. Now, it started with reporting from the New York Times. in stuff that's going to be in a new book called "This Will Not Pass," because we're in a time in American politics where everything important is sat on for a year and a half to eventually come out in a book. Anyway, they revealed that in the days after the January 6th attack on the Capitol building, the two top Republicans in Congress, that is Senator Mitch McConnell as well as Kevin McCarthy, told associates that they thought Trump was responsible for inciting the riot and vowed to drive him out of politics. Specifically, Mr. McCarthy was reported to have said that he was going to push Mr. Trump to resign immediately. Quote, "I've had it with this guy," he told a group of Republican leaders. Now that was bombshell reporting, but at that point, all we had was the word of these journalists. And so Kevin McCarthy came out strong against it, putting out a statement calling the reporting totally false and wrong. His spokesman, Mark Bednar, denied that the Republican colleague told colleagues he would urge Mr. Trump to leave office. Quote, "Mr. McCarthy never said he'd call Trump to say he should resign." And it was like just a few hours after that the video came out. So here's a little bit of what was being referred to in the New York Times.
From what I know of him, I mean, you guys all know him too. Do you think he'd ever back away? But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to call him. This is what I think. No, it'll pass the House. I think there's a chance it'll pass the Senate even when he's gone. And I think there's a lot of different ramifications for that. Now, I haven't had a discussion with the Dems that if he did resign, would it not happen? Now, this is one personal fear I have. I do not want to get into any conversations about Pence party, anything like that. I mean, the only discussion I would have with him is that I think this will pass, and it would be my recommendation we should resign. I mean, that would be my take, but I don't think he would take it, but I don't know.
Okay, now just to be very clear, I see people in the chat saying, well, look, that doesn't mean that he actually had the conversation with Trump, which is true. But I want to go back to that last graphic. The spokesman didn't say, no, that's not true. He didn't talk to Trump about it. He said McCarthy never said he'd call Trump to say he should resign. And that is very, very highly specifically what is in that call. And McCarthy tried to deny that it happened. I guess he didn't know at that point that it had been recorded. So oops, they've got the receipts. And that is exactly what you said you were going to do. I have a lot more thoughts about this, but Brett, what do you make of it?
Specifically, so this exposes what the difference is between Republican go-alongs in front of the cameras versus behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, in front of the cameras, they're gonna go out and say, like, listen, it isn't a big deal. Everybody is overreacting. The mainstream media is having a field day, and they have no right to because they're all owned, bought, and sold by liberals. But behind the scenes, even Kevin McCarthy understands the gravity of this situation and the unprecedented nature of the insurrection that took place on January 6th. And when he's talking candidly with people behind the scenes, he understands, and his instinct is this is so bad that even in the environment we're in the toxic environment we're in, where Trump is completely lambasting and trying to eliminate the credibility of the media, even Kevin McCarthy thinks that it's a bridge too far and that Trump himself should resign in this situation.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I know many people are going to be covering this because like people who might agree with us or be kind of on the spectrum are going to be like, yeah, look at, they got him. But like, I guess I'm kind of doing that, but it's also partially like, no, he was kind of in private doing the right thing. Now he didn't end up doing it. He only had I guess the intestinal fortitude to imply that he would go against Trump for a couple of days. And then I guess they looked around, they thought, oh, our base is totally fine with this. There's enough conspiracy theories that are kicking up mud that Republicans don't know exactly what to think. So this is acceptable. Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I'm not going to push for it. But in the moment, he actually had the right impulse that this is unacceptable. This is a bridge too far. And unfortunately, he turned around on it.
And that the Senate will vote to pass the impeachment resolution. So that is a that is a super majority for the most part of the Senate.
And it wouldn't happen, of course. That didn't actually happen. And in fact, in the 25th Amendment thing, even the House, only Kinzinger even ended up voting for it. But anyway, now really fast. You had seen when the reporting came out, Kevin McCarthy and his spokesperson were like, "That's a lie, a dirty lie, fake news. How could you do it?" Well, in response to the direct audio of him coming out, he did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So he didn't know exactly what to say. Now, a lot of people are wondering coming out of this, and by the way, we're gonna get to more of what was said by these different politicians in just one moment, but a lot of people are wondering, well, how are the Republicans going to respond to this? Are they going to try to take out Kevin McCarthy? It's interesting, they're starting to attack him a little bit. We'll get to something that Matt Gaetz said in a bit, but one thing I noticed was an article that was up on Fox News discussing this, and the article was, Kevin McCarthy rebuts New York Times reporting. Now, to be very clear, the article was published at like 8:30 Pacific time this morning, which is like close to noon Eastern time. Their reporting was entirely focused on the New York Times says he said this, but he rebuts it. This is hours and hours and hours and hours after the audio came out. That's not what the story is about anymore. It's no longer rebuttable. We can hear him say it, but the Fox News coverage sent the message to its fans that we don't know exactly. He's still saying he didn't say it. It felt like an oddly like a defensive move by Fox News to pretend that time had stood still before Rachel Maddow's show and there'd been no developments. Why else would you publish that article this morning, like 12 hours after the audio came out, Brett?
I mean, I think we all know the answer.
It's weird.
It's just there's so much faith on the right that they can insulate all their people from any fallout. And there's a difference between that and the left. Like the left is so disparate and at its own throats.
Yeah.
And the incentives are different, right? Like the right has always been content to throw inedible benefits to their base. The red meat on the right does not result in full bellies, because the red meat, the things you throw at your base on the left results in food on the table, better jobs, a safer environment, things that you can actually enjoy in the physical realm. On the right, the red meat, it's free for them. They're like, no, it's not a big deal. People are trying to make your kids transgender and all this ridiculousness, and then they pass bills that don't result in any of that. On the left, we're all over the place, but at the very least, it's not that same dynamic.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Okay, I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking, okay, forget the third video. Well, let's queue up for the fourth video and then we'll get to some of these other comments. So whenever you're ready on the direction side, you can jump to that last video.
If we lose the House, this is no joke. January 6th was a trial run. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that. It was a trial run. And they're going to come back and they win the House. Here's the thing, the technicality of what happened on January 6th. The only reason it wasn't worse was because Democrats had the House and they didn't have the votes in the House. If they take the House, then they have the votes to not authorize and legitimize the presidential election, whatever the results are. And so this is very serious.
I agree. It is very serious, and I'm glad that AOC is focusing on it because the Democratic leadership doesn't really seem to get the severity of this. Now, you might think, well, that's not fair. I mean, after all, they're doing the January 6th commission, right? They're taking it seriously. Yes, they're sort of investigating and they're sitting on their hands, and maybe sometime before the election, something will come out right before the Republicans sweep back into power and get rid of the January 6th commission. That's good. Jamie Raskin's doing some work and stuff like that. But in terms of fighting back against the anti-democratic movement that we're seeing, there's very little actually coming out from the Democrats on that. And what's interesting is with all this news that's come out about Kevin McCarthy, like when you contrast the things that he was saying back in the day, I would like to hear some of that coming from the Democrats. Let's jump into some more of what we found out about Kevin McCarthy after the 6th. He said at that point that Trump's conduct had been atrocious and totally wrong. He said that the president had incited people to attack the Capitol. saying that Mr. Trump's remarks at a rally on the National Mall that day were not right by any shape or any form. Now, of course, I guess the joke is on democracy, because in the end, Kevin McCarthy ends up totally going along with it and all that. But look, on the 10th, he was having January 10th of last year, he's having a conversation saying that not only would he call on Mr. Trump to resign, he said that he wished big tech companies would strip Republican lawmakers of their social media accounts, as Twitter and Facebook had already done at that point with Donald Trump. He said, we can't put up with that, this irresponsible behavior in social media. Can't they take their Twitter accounts away too? And now he's saying, Mr. McCarthy, his spokesman says, never said that particular members should be removed from Twitter. Well, I'm sure, like the New York Times reporters say that they have more on tape. I'm assuming if they're making that claim, they have that on tape too. So get ready for the backtrack on that, Brett. But that is so directly against everything the Republicans now publicly stand for, encouraging big tech censorship of their elected representatives because of irresponsible behavior.
Well, that's because they have no actual, to put it in John terms, any actual values other than they value power. And they will do anything to retain it. So that is politics winning out over the ideals that this country was founded on. That is power's power over doing what's right, which is they should not be called the right wing because nothing they do is ever right. It is utterly morally wrong and reprehensible. And that's the thing. The reason that Kevin McCarthy was freaking out when this happened and said, I will probably, I think the president's not gonna wanna back down, but I think the people in the Senate are gonna push him to resign through a vote to pass an impeachment, even the Republicans. He realizes though, there used to be this thing where like when Nixon resigned, it looked like there was enough honor among the people in his own party that against a mountain of not only evidence, but just this instinct that they were being horrible. And this is not the direction America could be perceived to be going in. The people would step up and vote against this. There was honor. There used to be honor, even in a Nixon era. But now there is none. Now there is only, and the other thing is that feeds into things like why there's a Fox Nation and not a CNN Plus anymore. It's because there is no enthusiastic person out there who's like, I need to get rid of Trump because he's just too much. That's the instinct. But there's people that say, I need to get Trump back because this is not enough. Yeah. And I think that I also do look forward to the New York Times coming out and saying, yeah, here's more proof, and we're gonna keep releasing the audio of it until you stop denying it.
Yeah, and whether that has any consequences for Kevin McCarthy, we're gonna have to see. I don't know. I mean, like it seems equally likely that in 2 days we won't even remember the story exists, or in 2 days Donald Trump will literally be doing rallies where the only thing he does is like set fire to an effigy of Kevin McCarthy. I don't know at this point. No consequences is like sort of the median position on everything that happens, but we'll have to see. Now, the issue is that while he was saying things like this, and we're gonna get to Mitch McConnell, flash forward just a few days to the actual vote, only 10 House Republicans joined with Democrats to support impeaching Donald Trump. So like at that point, I guess the tide had, it's not that the tide had turned, it was clear that the tide wasn't going to turn. So those who had been looking at the ocean decided, well, I guess I'm still with Trump. Because just by the end of that month, Kevin McCarthy, who was saying he was going to encourage him to resign and that it was atrocious behavior, unacceptable, no shape and form was it right, was going to Mar-a-Lago and just hanging out with him. And since then, all those comments are done. There are some Republicans who still criticize Trump for what happened on the 6th, but not Kevin McCarthy. He's moved on from that. Mitch McConnell, who will occasionally criticize him, even though, remember, Mitch McConnell turned on impeachment too. He previously said that he thought the Democrats would, quote, take care of the son of a bitch for us. Remember, publicly, he was saying, well, I think he's gonna be out of office in a few weeks, so this is just an attempt to distract the nation. Like, he turned against it just as fast as Kevin McCarthy, but in private, he was taking it seriously. So I don't know, do you give him credit off of that? And to bring this back to AOC in terms of the trial run, when they go for the next attempt, there are gonna be a lot of Republicans that are perfectly fine with it. New poll in Salon A majority of Republicans believe now they've landed on, no, it was an act of patriotism. 57% say that. 88% of Democrats say it was an insurrection. So remember, the vast majority of those Republicans that now say it's an act of patriotism were denouncing Antifa on the day of. But now you give it a year, a couple extra months, and it's an act of patriotism that we should all be able to get behind, Brett.
And they can't. That's what's so infuriating about it. And that's the thing I honestly don't have a solution for. Because they're so tribal that they just want to be right. And they don't need to be consistent in their justification for it. So that's another theme of this, is the right wing doesn't start with a response and build on that response to something horrible that they've done that's obviously wrong. They know it's wrong. They know, like, think of everyone like Kevin McCarthy, who would much rather Mitch McConnell be in power, would much rather have a Mike Pence, someone boring and religious and totally, abortion plus tax cuts equals Republican Party.
Yep.
But yeah, it's very frustrating. I don't have a solution for it. That's the problem.
I don't, and look, that could be personally disappointing for us. Maybe our audience wishes that we could solve it. I would say it's not on us.
Just to finish the thought, it's that they try something and they know that it's bad, and then they know they see it fail. They throw the spaghetti off the wall, it falls down. They don't justify why they threw that wad of spaghetti against the wall. They just abandon it and come up with a completely contradictory defense to their actions and throw that against the wall. And if that sticks a little, they build on that. But they're never held accountable for the fact that if they try 3 different responses to the same event, and 2 of them are wildly contradictory to the third, they're never held accountable that they exposed already that their justifications 100%. Are BS and not founded in any reality, but rather founded in whether they test well with their own audience.
Exactly. Well, look, to bring it to terms that John would use, it's because a desire for consistency, internal logic, those sorts of things, that is not a value on the right. It isn't. We might falsely believe that that's not a political thing. That's just everybody wants to be consistent, right? No, values get ranked. And a desire, as you said earlier, a desire for power, a desire for a feeling of superiority, of ideological purity over intellectual consistency, those so far outrank any desire for logic or attachment to reality on the right that you can't even see those values anymore. They're so deep descended into the muck. And like, really fast, Mark Levin was doing a whole show on Disney talking about how it's a network of perverts. They shouldn't be able to exist. Does anyone on the right think it's weird that no one on the right was saying that like 4 months ago? They were all totally fine with it. That DeSantis took $100,000 from a group of commie perverts and they don't have any problem with it. There is just no desire for any of this. And that said, we're gonna take our first break. When we come back, we're gonna be talking about just one of the worst situations right now in the criminal justice system, as well as we're gonna laugh at Greg Abbott a little bit. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Brett lost his train of thought. And
it happens.
It was just, I
don't
know. Here's the thing, I hadn't been sleeping, John.
Yeah.
And now I slept last night.
Yeah.
And now I'm more tired than I was.
It doesn't
and less
seem fair.
effective.
Doesn't
what
seem
is that
fair.
about? I paid off my sleep debt.
I don't know. I normally wake up immediately go into my bathroom where I have left a cup of coffee that has been cold all night, so that I don't have to make it and make noise and wake up my wife and everything. But that I didn't have that because we didn't have any milk, so I'm off on my caffeination. Like everything is shifted by like an hour and a half. So I don't know how the show's gonna go.
Wait, anyway, so do you make coffee that's hot with milk in it the night before, or do you then
pour dairy.
Milk in it?
No. It's the milk has been in there all night, but it's like oat milk or whatever. Anyway, it's not important.
And you can't drink coffee. This is important. You can't drink coffee.
We have a limited amount of time. I can and sometimes do. I don't like to because it's nasty. Anyway, so everybody, did you know that today is Earth Day? Well, we've got a fun little new design. Look at this. Oh, the dragon squad cradling the Earth, and that's available right now at Shop TYT. Actually, I believe we still have a sale going. What's up?
Who designed that?
My assumption is Carlos or Norma. Tamara wasn't specific to me. I know they were working on it for some time. Maybe we can get some clarification in the Slack. I had a couple of along the way the preview draft sent to me, but no attribution of who is designing it.
Well,
but let's
gorgeous.
find out about that because it is a very good design, available in multiple colors and everything. There's a nice bright blue. I don't generally wear very bright colors on the show, but it looks awesome and it is available. So you can head to Shop TYT for that. Okay, that said, let's talk about what's going on. Hammer Dan says McCarthy opted to be an invertebrate. That's funny. The Duck Dragon says in the members' comments, watching unfiltered MTG is bad for my brain. I'll let Josh do that. She's not a clever, quick person. She is doing her best on the stand, and that's all she's doing.
Michelle designed it.
Oh, Michelle designed it.
Michelle?
I didn't know. Well, I'm glad we did the clarification. Who gave us that clarification?
Norma, because Norma's
awesome.
Also great. Not to me,
Norma's
frequently kind of mean to me in a way that makes me giggle.
But yeah, okay,
nice
well that's awesome. Great design, love it. RKNG1 Garcia has been a tier 2 member for 17 months, says MTG doesn't seem to remember anything, not even her tweets. Maybe her staff sent it out, or maybe she's lying. I mean, maybe it's dishonesty. Liz has been a tier 1 member for 14 months, says, hi, John and Brett. Always looking forward to see and hear you. Hope You Win is the best ever podcast. Keep up the good work. Well, as far as I know, we're not up for best ever podcast, but we think maybe we won that Webby. Stay tuned. We're gonna find out in a few days. Thank you to everyone who voted.
Do you know who you were up against?
Yes, Insider had a show. There were a few others. I don't remember exactly what their names were, but I'm sure they're all good shows, and I love that they will be in the top 5 and not the top 1. Hopefully,
God, I hope you win, John.
We were going up against. Let's see. The website is taking a while to load. Thank you.
What's your 5-word acceptance speech? Are you guys gonna source that?
Oh God, I don't know. We're gonna have to. How do you do that? It's something about climate change. I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure that out. Warrior Soul Official, welcome to Tier 1 membership. Thank you for being with us, much appreciated. Let's see. Billy B. Williams says, "Lol, Slack sacks." Well, we use Slack. What do you want out of us? May Money is saying that. Jeez, I can't even read the 5
all the other nominees. I'm gonna out her for it. That was bald.
Oh my God, I don't often see messages. Okay, we'll be right back. Not expect that. Okay, that was a weird break that we just had there. But we are gonna have to get it together because this is one of the roughest stories we're gonna be talking about, not just on today's rundown, but on the entire week. That said, it's important, so let's jump into it. At this point, when you're watching this, or at least when we're filming it, Texas is less than 1 week away from executing a woman named Melissa Lucio, a mother who was convicted of murder in the death of her 2-year-old daughter more than a decade ago. There's a chance that you're familiar with some of the details of this story. What you will find if you're not is that the more you hear about this, the more unacceptable them going forward with this is. Every detail just shows how little concern there was for getting to anything even approaching the truth of what happened in that tragic death. We're gonna give you some of the basic facts to understand this, but you saw there the Innocence Project, which is obviously working on this, putting out a photo of Melissa Lucio. Now, back in 2008, Melissa was sentenced to death in Texas for the murder of her 2-year-old daughter, Mariah, who died 2 days after a tragic fall. Now, what happened is the child fell down a flight of stairs while the family was moving homes in 2007. The toddler had a mild physical disability that made her unstable while walking and prone to tripping. 2 days later, she took a nap and didn't wake up, which is, no matter any other detail of the story, an absolute tragedy, clearly. But that does not mean that it's murder. And there's a massive difference between one of the worst tragedies that can regrettably happen to a family and then implying that it was purposeful, the result of abuse. Now, that is the direction that the Justice Department went in, or those investigating this. So authorities jumped in. They did not seem particularly interested in the disability that we mentioned earlier that might lead the child to be more prone to these sorts of falls. What they did was an incredibly coercive interrogation of Melissa Lucio. So it was over 6 hours long, late into the night. Already terrible conditions, especially for a mother who just lost her child. They used what's called the Reed technique, which since has been identified as leading to a number of different false confessions. I would find that to be unacceptable. My producer is pointing out that at that point she was also pregnant, so even more context to how devastating this interrogation was. They got in her face, they screamed at her, implying that she had to know what was going on, saying they had evidence that she was to blame for the death, which you cannot miss the fact that they did not. They are lying to her to get her to confess. Then they reassured her that all of this could be done. If she only admits that she was responsible, then she has nothing else to worry about. She said over 100 times during it that she was innocent, over and over and over again. But eventually, after hours of pressure, they broke her and they got her to say what they wanted, to repeat these phrases that they've been coaching her on throughout that. That coerced confession was the core evidence presented at her trial, apparently critical to the jury's guilty verdict and the death sentence that followed. They did not need to demonstrate some sort of pattern of abuse of the children, anything else that would lead one to believe that aside from the death itself, that she might be responsible. They had the confession, which they forced out of her, and that's the evidence that was used. Now, there's a lot of other details, which we will get to, but Brett, what are your thoughts based on what you've seen so far?
Something specific, the Reed technique, the more you find out about it, the more ridiculous it is. So the Reed technique is essentially a way to get people to admit to something, not the truth, not necessarily the truth. It is just a way of wearing someone down so that they'll say whatever you need them to say so that this can stop. There's no timer on it. Now, sometimes I'm sure the Reed technique results in a confession to what's true. But other times it has been proven that it just leads to people saying whatever the police want, so that they'll essentially no longer have to endure the interrogation.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's like, I wish we had a time to jump into that, because that is worthy of its own whole thing. But right now, let's focus on Melissa Lucio, especially because time is short. We are mere days away from the execution. Now, on top of everything else that we've already said, evidence that had been presented at the trial has been debunked. The fact that timeline, as my producer points out, that the death was ruled a murder before an autopsy was conducted, which that's unacceptable, obviously. The jury didn't hear about Melissa's own history of trauma and abuse. The DA who prosecuted Lucio was running for re-election, has since been convicted of bribery and extortion. And there has been some, that's the context that's baked into the decision that they got. There's been some very interesting developments since then, including that 5 of the jurors in her case have come out in favor of clemency or a reprieve, citing in part the new evidence. One in particular said, "I voted to sentence Melissa Lucio to death. I was wrong." There's a group of 103 bipartisan members of the Texas legislature, including 32 Republican members of the House and 8 Republican state senators. That is 32 Republican members of the House, 8 Republican state senators coming out against an execution, that by itself should be the biggest news of the week potentially. But despite that, it is still moving forward. They are still proceeding, and there's every reason to believe that unless there is a national uproar, that they are going to go through with this. Possibly one of the most unjust executions that we've seen in some time, Brett.
It is. I mean, this is one of those heartbreaking situations. That's why a lot of it, as you go through it, you're like, so we're gonna execute this woman for that. For stuff like this is the reason I don't think we should have a death penalty. You just might be wrong.
Yeah.
Declaring it a murder before you have evidence of it, taking a confession and not really being able to bring actual evidence, and then the process that forbids any additional evidence from coming into the courtroom. But the thing for me is this happened 14 years ago. And she's gonna be killed by the state that says that, listen, we shouldn't have government overreach, but we should also just be able to kill you. And I understand there should be, and when this kind of information comes out, the amount of cost and time that it would take to get this through the justice system in a way that yields justice, which is what the justice system is named after, is prohibitive. not only in terms of overall resources, but the amount of time she's allowed to be on death row before they kill her.
Yeah. Just think, like you pointed out the time since it's been there. Imagine, let's say that everything goes the way it should, that they do cancel this thing, which there's at this point not a great reason to believe that's going to happen. We have in the lower third, you can see the phone number there if you want to call Governor Abbott to try to put pressure on him. Of course, it's Governor Abbott, so that's going to be difficult. If you're on the podcast, by the way, the phone number is 956-446-2866. It has been, she lost her child. She has spent years and years in which she has been, incarcerated. Many people might have, up until recently, thought that she actually did it. So that's its own terror. Facing death, even if nothing else happened, this has been an unacceptable, unimaginable situation to put this mother through. And she might die as a result of it. Like this should by itself, as you pointed out, this should be enough to get us to end the death penalty, that this sort of injustice can happen. But the thing is, we know that there's hundreds and hundreds of cases exactly like this, where the evidence was just as shoddy, the forced confessions were just as clear, and the techniques that were used were just as objectionable. But we just keep letting it happening, and this is Texas, and some Republicans, to their credit, are coming out against it, but for the most part, like, perfectly fine with this. This is hardly new, specifically in Texas.
Yeah, and there's other facts, like if you read the objection, the strongly worded but still respectful letter from all the legislators. I think in there they point out that that her husband, who has a history of violence, has gone to jail and gotten out since then, and she's still there.
Insane.
And they just decide, and that's it. That's what's so frustrating. And then what is Governor Abbott going to do? Is he going to extend this? No, he's like, here's a brown person, we're going to put him in jail. Like, I don't lose any points for keeping that there. Plus, we get to kill someone, which they in Texas, his base loves.
Yeah. Well, we're going to transition now to another story about Greg Abbott, just to give you an idea of his priorities. Basically, like, this is going on. He could have an effect. He could end this injustice, not cure it. It's all baked in at this point. He could do that. What has he actually been up to? Well, we're gonna let you know as we transition into this. Governor Greg Abbott had a stunt over the past few weeks that we've talked about multiple times. It was, he's gonna shut down the border to put pressure on the Biden administration, make it seem as if Biden isn't doing much. And in the meantime, potentially cause some increased inflation, because since the trucks can't come in, products won't be available, prices will go up. Well, he ended up looking like the bad guy, not Joe Biden. And after just 9 days, he canceled it. But in that time, he was able to do some damage, not perhaps to Joe Biden's approval rating, but to his state and to the country. And we've got the facts for you. One economist has estimated that those needless inspections that Abbott started cost Texas alone $4.2 billion, and the equivalent of 36,000 jobs. All told, for the country, the damage was estimated at $9 billion, which you gotta give him credit. That is an amazing impact in just 9 days, costing $1 billion a day for your stupid, pointless, totally like partisan stunt that he decided to pull there. That's not it, by the way, Brett. There's other bad details, but like, there's not a lot of opportunities to do that sort of damage in that short a period of time.
Yeah. You gotta hand it to the guy.
He must wake up very early in the morning.
Must get up very early in the morning. $1 billion a day. And this is hilarious because this is the side of the aisle that says that they hate government waste. And this is the most interesting part of this, is what is the left doing to point this out? I hope this story goes everywhere, because this story gets to the heart of how ridiculous and stupid and contradictory people on the right who want to be president someday will go. You've got Abbott here, who has already said, listen, the government overreaches and it gets too crazy, and then says that he wants people to go break down doors to investigate parents who are like okay with their kid potentially, rumored has it, being transgender. And then he also wants he is so against inflation and all the supply chain issues that he is going to shut down in a way that the Border Patrol and Customs has said is you cannot recover from, slowing down the import of things into the country, things that are coming to become the economy. Yeah. He's stopping it because I can't believe he's ridiculous. He doesn't understand that what he could do is just say mean things about immigrants and what's happening at the border, never do it and not cost people the money and still come out on top. But in this situation, he has really rolled in it because this guy has shut down the border and cost a very huge amount of money to the American people, specifically those in his state.
Exactly. Yeah, ton of money. By the way, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay, we're all excited here. It's $4.2 billion. The person who made the lower third, now 42. It's bad. It's bad. And by the way, if he'd been able to continue for long enough, we would have gotten there. But let's pump the brakes. You know, like Abbott did. He forced us all to pump the brakes at the border. Anyway, so okay, that's the cost. But you might say, well, okay, that was the cost, but they did it for a reason after all. It's to find contraband, to find human trafficking and drug smugglers and all that. So let's balance the cost against the gain. Well, state troopers did the inspections and found, oh no, 0 drugs, weapons, or any other type of contraband. That almost, like just by chance, couldn't you have found some guns or something? No. They did 4,100 inspections. They didn't find any contraband, but they did cite some truck drivers for underinflated tires, broken turn signals, and oil leaks. And so at the end of the day, oil leaks and $4.2 billion kind of seems worth it now, though, doesn't it, Brett?
It's just like it's like having a kid, I assume, where you're just like, listen, don't touch the fire. Like we have all these protocols in place for a reason. There's a cover in front of it. It protects us as it is. And they're like, no, I have to find out for myself. I know better than you. And so I need to go put my hands on the fire and mess with it. And you're like, you're gonna burn yourself. All the protocols and safety was in place at the border, and it did fine.
Apparently,
but he went.
By the way, let's be very clear. They already do those inspections.
That's what I'm saying. We already have these things.
Yeah.
You don't have a better way of doing it. And he proved his incompetence. So he is not only a big government money burner, but he's also absolutely incompetent. He thinks he knows better than the professionals. He is against Customs and Border Patrol because he thinks he knows better than them. To dear people on the right, the folks that you like who are keeping the evil Mexicans out of the country, even they think Abbott is a total useless idiot.
I like it. That's where we're gonna end. We're gonna go to our second break. We come back, some really weird coincidences coming out of Russia having to do potentially with their war. I'm not saying anything. We're just gonna talk about some really interesting stories I found after this. Okay, everybody, what is going on out there? Armed Liberals says in a super chat, John, did you leave your suit at Spearmint Rhino? Don't do that. I don't like that. Max Siege says, it's my mom's birthday on this Earth Day, and a happy Pesach too? Pesach? Pesach?
Pesach.
Not familiar.
Pesach is Passover. Sorry, I'm eating cheese.
Apologies. And yes, happy to that as well. Pitchforks Dragon says, if being interrogated, always ask for a lawyer. Also, if doing a super chat, always ask for the TYT replay back. Pitchforks Dragon can always be relied upon to say that.
Pitchforks Dragon, let me just tell you something. If you want to ruin a stream ops day, and that's it. It's just it was untenable. We can keep doing it.
All above my pay grade.
Also about Spearmint Rhino. Did you know in Vegas there's a place called Peppermint Hippo that they invented to be
like a play on it?
Yeah.
Given the choice, I'd go to the
their performers.
No,
it's like a big drama in Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been one of the big rivalries in exotic dance clubs. Joe Willis says, random, but you may look into Jessica Piper. She's running for state rep here in Missouri. We definitely need better representation here. Good suggestion, I like it. There's a lot of great state level candidates. We can't always know about them, so we always love it when somebody raises the profile for us. May Money says in a super chat, happy 3-year anniversary to my dope hubs. I got him a kitten as a gift. Sandy and Annabelle have a new little sis and they couldn't be more annoyed. I'm sure they will grow to love each other. By the way, Brett, do you still have your kitten?
Yes, we do have the kitten.
How's it going?
He's about to go. We're nearing the end of our fostership with Zanzibar.
Oh, Zanzibar.
And so pretty soon the scars on my wife's hands will heal because he loves to bite and scratch hands and faces and all that.
Okay, well that's adorable.
He just needs companionship from another cat.
I'm sure. And someday we're gonna find you a cat that doesn't stimulate allergies. We're gonna get you to adopt it. That's what we're gonna do.
Good luck. Only a tiger, maybe.
Yeah, okay. How much time do we have? Well, we have a minute 40. Okay, let's read some comments. Noel Taylor over on Twitch says Abbott loves to waste the Texas tax dollars. That is fairly clear at this point. Power to the Dragon people says, hi guys, loving the show today. Thank you, and I love your name. Much appreciated. Sedona Susan gave out 5 subs over on Twitch. They had a hype train going on, no big deal. Purple Dragon Crew's been here for 4 months. Thank you. Big Bull Dragon's been here for 20 months. That's 20 months on Trash Day. I got nothing else. Just thanks for keeping us informed. Thank you. That's more than enough. Bookishire Dragon 80K has been here for 15 months. Says hi, John and Brett. Happy Garbage Day. Happy Garbage Day to you too. We will be throwing away garbage. I don't know who Brett's is. I don't know if he managed to see mine, but we will find out. John's Venn diagram of desire has been here for 22 months. Says wearing my Dragon Squad hoodie and enjoying this Friday with my Dragon Daddy and Drunkle Dragon. Thank you for all you do. Sending love from the Pacific Northwest. Thank you. Do we have time? Okay. Franklin Sharpslicer has a poem. Margarine, the little worm, just love in the courtroom to watch her squirm. I don't recall. Oh, I guess I said, watching the sweat drip from forehead. They take a small break so monster she can drink. All that caffeine should help, don't you think? I'm watching TDR on the side because reality cannot be denied. Happy Trash Day. That's a good one.
Wow.
That's top tier from Franklin Sharpslicer right there.
So.
I don't like though knowing that we have the same taste in energy drinks. I'm gonna have to process that mentally as we move forward, but love the poetry. Franklin, keep it coming. Okay, now with that, we're gonna keep the news coming after that, I guess.
Yay.
The finger symbols of the time don't always match up in the end, but thanks for trying, Sophie.
Sophie
anyway. Okay, I know. So here's the thing, Brett. Here's a little update. We got to get through both of these and what remains. So let's be relatively fast, starting with this.
Well, it's not the first time that military intelligence, Ukrainian military intelligence, has intercepted these communications, given that the Russians seem to have very lax standards when it comes to security of communications. Yes, basically, it's a message that says kill all the prisoners, perhaps save some of the officers, probably because they'll want to interrogate them and get intelligence out of them. But this is just another intercept by the Ukrainians. Now, of course, we cannot verify it, and CNN has reached out to the Russian Ministry of Defense. No comment yet.
Yeah, I have a feeling they probably won't be forthcoming. Now, that's a devastating revelation that they believe, and again, grains of salt on everything. We don't know for sure what to trust coming from any source, even from a guy who apparently is just a disembodied head floating in darkness, of exactly what is true. But they're saying they've intercepted communiques that the policy now is just to execute the prisoners. And by the way, that is consistent in what we have seen from the Russian forces for some weeks. But that is just one of a number of devastating and in some cases hard to process bits of news coming out of the war or on the periphery of the war. And I want to talk about a few. So there's apparently footage showing a chemical plant in Russia being set on fire. Take a look at this. So just to be clear, that footage is not in Ukraine, it's in Russia. It's described as a chemical plant 250 miles east of Moscow, and chemical plants do get set on fire. Sometimes they just explode. It happens in the United States. It did come on the same day that a defense plant blaze also broke out, killing 7 people. Just putting that out there. also happened to notice that there were a couple of oligarchs found dead just in the past couple of days. Former Kremlin official and Gazprom Bank vice president was found dead in his luxury Moscow apartment alongside the bodies of his wife and 13-year-old daughter on Monday. It appeared he had shot them before turning the gun on himself. Now that's in Moscow. Oligarch apparently killed his family and then killed himself. The following day, a former Novatech deputy chairman and his wife and his 18-year-old daughter were found dead in their mansion in Spain in this case. The scene suggested the woman had been stabbed before the oligarch hung himself in the garden. Now, this is two different countries. Neither, by the way, were on the international sanctions list. I'm just putting all this out here, Brett. That's a lot, and things happen in the world. There are coincidences. Multiple fires can break out, multiple oligarchs can die. We're living in crazy times, and I go to crazy places in my mind. That's all I'm saying.
What's your contention that the Russians are behind it?
Well, that theoretically there could be sabotage happening inside of Russia. That's an idea. That's not my idea, obviously, but that's an idea. And the idea that people have been killed in other countries by the Russians would hardly be the first time. Novel, unique, Well,
I'll say this. When it comes to ridiculous activities that are also extremely bleak, like that is Russian culture. And then you throw in like an acrobat. In my experience with Russian culture, reading their books, and then like hanging out with some, it is just strange to me. But also, like, here's another thing that I like to draw a line between, like, to just give you an idea of where America has gotten relative to Russia. Like years and years ago, it's almost comical and well known that if someone was engaged in a scandal in Russia, it was literally that the Kremlin had put child pornography on their computer. They literally called everyone a pedophile. Like, it's well documented. It's happened many, many times. That was their go-to move for a long time. And then they'd also go kill people. Here in America, we're right now at the point where we're calling everybody a pedophile.
Yeah.
I'm scared that we'll get to the point where they'll do this. And like when I'm thinking about these like murder suicide crime scenes, I can almost see, like, I'll say KGB, but whatever they have now, they're giggling. They're like, all right, I'm gonna kill them and put the gun in hand, shoot himself, put him down.
Yeah.
Like,
and again, we're not saying that that's what happened. There is no direct evidence of any of this. It's just.
I will compare the convenient coincidental nature of these events, but not declare that they are absolutely connected. It's just that, like, this happens a lot. So it's either the thing where I'm implying might be the case, or it's just really, really bad luck that all the people who oppose Putin, either in public or in private, seem to end up dead in ways that it's like, well, I can't believe he fell off giant balcony.
Yeah, ways that are just coincidence. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, by the way, none of this has to be anything more than a coincidence for the situation to be devastating. More photographs have now been released, satellite photography of mass graves outside of Mariupol. You can see they've been expanded. So many people are being killed. The situation is incredibly serious, even if only the things happening inside of Ukraine are true and verifiable. It is a devastating situation. The war needs to end. Now, that said, we are going to move into a very different topic to close out our hour. Let's jump into this video.
So I'm curious, are there been frequently asked questions of Bernie Sanders that he's going to run again in 24?
Yes. People, okay. I mean, amongst who? Maybe not from Chuck Todd, but maybe but certainly from our allies, and there are a number of them, both people who endorsed us, groups have endorsed us, supporters around the country have been saying, I think.
So he's not going to primary Biden, correct?
Yes.
That's out of the question.
Well, right. I don't think that he's supporting President Biden aggressively, trying to get the agenda passed. So yeah, primary's not on the table.
But he does not have that same deference for the vice president.
No, he respects Senator Harris. I think at that point,
Vice President Harris.
Vice President Harris, of course. Yeah, thank you. I keep catching myself.
I don't want to. Yes, that would get you trouble.
Yeah, of course, as it should. I think that the question on Vice President Harris' issue to run, or anybody, is to just say, what are you going to run for?
So that's an awesome update on what we've been talking about earlier this week about the fact that as the leak, which is either originated from or is at least confirmed by Faiz Shakir, is that that Bernie would run if Biden doesn't. Chuck Todd there, like sort of he's just saying, he's not saying anything. He's just saying, well, why wouldn't there be the deference for Harris, or clarifying it? Why would there be deference for a person who wouldn't be running for re-election? She is the current vice president. That's true. Vice presidents do run for president. That happens. Why would we expect that anyone, or especially Bernie, would offer deference to the vice president in that case, Brett?
Especially because he did better than she did. Hate to break it to you. Quite a bit. Why is the rubric by which we judge this like going to someone who lost? Because because that's not how it works. This is not like line of succession. It's not like if God forbid something were to happen to Biden, Bernie's gonna jump in and like sit at the Oval Office Resolute desk faster, and now he's president. No, this is when an election happens, he would run.
Yeah,
that's what, and he's already said he's not gonna do the thing that is like, oh my God, challenge Biden in a primary.
Yeah, like, by the way, Harris wasn't chosen by the people to be the vice president. Like when she went up to be chosen by the people, as you pointed out, the people were more with Bernie. Now, look, to be fair, Biden ended up winning that race, so they could retort with that, and maybe that plays into Bernie not being willing to primary Biden specifically. But there's no inevitability to vice presidents. Vice presidents frequently run for president and lose. You get to weigh in as a people. The voters get to weigh in. By the way, I did want to let you know the one thing though, because like I feel like this is the beginning of, again, the strike back. Chuck Todd, a guy who had some disgusting things to say during the last primary about Bernie voters, certainly has a preference. He may not state it like I do, and that's supposed to seem more objective, but it is indisputable that he has a preference. I'm feeling a little bit of other establishment pressure coming down. So, by the way, if you take a look at this, it's coming from the Washington Post. They said only 21% of Democratic leaning voters say their choice would be Joe Biden again. That is like shockingly low for a president. Okay, so that opens up the possibility of someone else. They had a ranking, by the way. This is not like based on polls. It's just the Washington Post, Aaron Blake's preference. And so let's bring this up. They have Joe Biden at number 1. They'd prefer that he just runs again. Pete Buttigieg is number 2. Kamala Harris is 3. They throw in Elizabeth Warren there 4. I mean, obviously, Amy Klobuchar has got to be top 5. Why not? Roy Cooper, you can't walk down a street in America without people calling out for Roy Cooper, and then they throw in AOC as 10. Bernie's not even on the list, by the way. So I just find it so amazing. So get ready. If he does decide to run, it is gonna be another time through that cycle of the establishment, objective, neutral journalist pressure to get the outcome that they want, which is definitely not Bernie Sanders.
There's no talent on the left.
There isn't. It's indisputable. Anyway, thank you everyone. We've got more coming up. We're gonna take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to what remains of the Damage Report with me, John Iadarola, and the host of so much Happy Half Hour, Game Busters, all sorts of things. Sunday stream.
Sunday stream. I think we might be sunsetting Sunday stream pretty soon, guys. Because Brett hasn't had a weekend to himself in a while. So, but that said, Happy Half Hour, and Jordan's technically the host of Game Busters, but I'm on it a lot.
That's true. You're on it a lot. He is the host. Although neither of you have any idea, even 5 minutes out, what's going to happen on it. Anyway,
we're doing Rust today.
That is true. You're doing Rust. It's going to be fun. So you can Rust bust the Game Busters live on the stream tonight. Brett, which Taco Bell item won this week's bracket on Happy Half Hour? I've been wondering.
Well, if I hadn't popped one of these boys before, I would have gotten to that bracket, but instead we just drank some beers and sang some Grateful Dead tunes.
You didn't do that. You teased a bracket and didn't do it.
We'll do it next week. Believe me, I had every intention.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like it.
But I would assume Mexican pizza because it's just a goddamn delight.
No, it's too. I need like one of the things I love about Taco Bell is you can get food that is like it is locked down. It's got a hard shell around it and a soft shell around that, maybe a layer of beans inside. It's not getting out. It's well contained.
It's John's Beans D-S&M.
My God. We're gonna make a segment out of that. Mayhem Mendes, hello to you and your mom watching. Thank you for being here. Okay, with that, we're gonna read just a couple of quick comments and then jump into it. We've got a few things to talk about and then the garbage people of the week. So you're definitely not gonna wanna miss that. First though, Anthony McLendon super chatted to say, there's a difference, John. You drink Monster. Marjorie Green is a monster. That is true. Ask Shar Empath says somebody needs the primary Biden. I wouldn't get your hopes up for a seat. It's just it's very difficult. It is very difficult to primary an incumbent president, but we'll see. We'll see. And I still think there is a significant chance that he will not run again. He is going to be pretty old, and it doesn't have to be down to his choice. Pressure can start to manifest like, oh, it's Pete Buttigieg's time to shine, Biden. You don't want to get in his way. It's gonna.
I can't,
happen.
dude. I can't with it
every
because
day.
There's one thing that this generation of Democrat establishment has proven. It's that they value like their line of succession over anything. It's likelihood to work. True. They value like what they have convinced. It's definitely a generational issue. They have convinced themselves that they know best, even though under their watchful eye, the Supreme Court has flipped unrecoverably to the other side. Among other things.
Well, with that said, we're gonna jump into the news. So let's start off with this.
Do you remember your remarks on the floor last year when you brought this up?
You'd have to give me a specific. I mean, I made a lot of remarks last year.
So I recall a story you told about your brother.
Okay.
And I remember you said that your brother called, or that your mother called you, I believe, to tell you that your brother had some news that he was afraid to tell you.
Okay.
And your brother wanted to tell you that he was gay, didn't he?
He was expressing that to the family, and he thought that we would hold that against him and not let my children be around him.
Why do you think he thought that?
I don't know. It never would have happened. I'll tell you that. My kids at that point in their life adored my brother.
Can I tell you, if I were your brother, I would have been afraid to tell you too.
Damn, that is a raw speech for current politics in America. That is Representative Ian Mackey talking about growing up in Hickory County, Missouri. He's going to get into it. Talking there with Representative Chuck Bassia. And look, there's a lot obviously that can play into the relationship between them that might have led to that conversation happening at all, let alone happening in such a public way. But this is a real thing. And I can only imagine with so much renewed raw homophobia driving Republican politics these days, we're gonna figure out the tech issues. Like, what sort of pressure that must put on you to try? Do we know what's happening? Are you guys seeing this? No? I apologize. My preview monitor is absolutely flipping out. Apparently we're good, so I will continue. Okay, lost my train of thought. That said, let's jump into a little bit more of the comments in this.
Well,
I would have been afraid to tell you too because of stuff like this. Because this is what you're focused on. This is the legislation you want to put forward. This is what consumes your time. I would have been afraid to tell you too. I was afraid of people like you growing up, and I grew up in Hickory County, Missouri. I grew up in a school district that would vote tomorrow to put this in place. And for 18 years, I walked around with nice people like you who took me to ball games, who told me how smart I was, and who went to the ballot and voted for crap like this. And I couldn't wait to get out. I couldn't wait to move to a part of our state that would reject this stuff in a minute. I couldn't wait. And thank God I made it. Thank God I made it out, and I think every day of the kids who are still there, who haven't made it out, who haven't escaped from this kind of bigotry. Gentlemen, I'm not afraid of you anymore because you're gonna lose. You may win this today, but you're going to lose.
I absolutely love that. So look, the stakes right now is this bill to, like a lot of states, red states have been doing, to ban transgender athletes, specifically here, transgender girls from competing on girls' sports teams. It's bigotry, as was identified in that video. That's what it is. And specifically, Ian Mackey, back when he was in 2004, back when he was a high school senior, when he was in the position that now the trans kids are being victimized in the same way, Missouri passed an amendment to ban same-sex marriage with more than 70% of voters in support. That was 18 years ago. And where have we gone from there? Have we progressed from there? Have we evolved? That the bigotry, the homophobia is coming in a slightly different form, but the goal is the same. The demonization is the same, Brett. I love that defense there of Ian Mackey, especially saying that he's not scared of them anymore, that he's gonna fight. This is what we need right now.
Yeah, and they're the same a-holes. The people voting to ban transgender athletes are the same a-holes that voted to ban gay marriage. They're the same people doing, I would argue, in many cases, whether it's in Missouri or Texas or Florida, the exact same thing. And what is that thing? It's not allowing other people to exist as themselves. That's it.
Yep.
And so when I hear people on the right say that we don't want big government controlling our lives, and then they pass laws that ban the discussion, the discussion of sexuality or gender, which is basically banning a discussion of who people are and objective reality. How are these the same people? No, It comes back to them being oppressive. And so when I see things like the banning of discussions from people on the right, all I see is hatred. And if you're worried, all those same people on the right are like, well, I just am afraid of that moment when we lose American democracy and the promise of America. That's it. The stuff they're always afraid the left's gonna do and ban and tell you how to be. How can you tell people how to be more than saying you can't have your own gender identity?
Yeah.
Especially when it affects no one else, and doubly especially when it has to do with like kids soccer.
100%.
Get over it.
It's so see-through.
Kids soccer sucks. It doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter.
That's beside the
point. Put them all on the same
yes.
team. It's just gonna be a clump of kids kicking each other in the shins.
Thank you. Anyway, glad to have this speech in addition to we had the prior viral speech responding to some of the grooming stuff. We need more of this. National Democrats, you paying attention? This is what's necessary. Also popular, by the way. Like, I'm not asserting that you have to do this because you really believe it, but it's also kind of a good thing to do for your side. Consider it. Okay, with that said, we need to jump into one last topic before we get rid of the garbage. There's a goddamn fly, and there's nothing more frustrating to me. But anyway, we're gonna move on, even if CNN Plus does not move on. Dun. Let's jump into this. CNN Plus, the new CNN spinoff streaming service, is already gone. It's gonna be winding down. They spent $300 million on it. It's $100 to $200 million advertising specifically. That is like the rollout of a new Marvel movie in terms of its advertising budget, but it just didn't work. Not enough people signed on. And so in nearly record time, that service is going to be gone, which means for some of the high profile people, they're gonna lose their opportunities, but also a lot of regular people that were moved over to that service, perhaps from CNN, perhaps hired out of other places, told this is a service we're gonna be investing in. This is a safe bet for your job. Well, that's now gone, which is a tragedy for a lot of people who can't necessarily land on their own, podcast and make millions of dollars like some of these hosts will. Anyway, there's already been a victory lap on the right, with Trump putting out a statement saying congratulations to CNN Plus on their decision to immediately fold for a lack of ratings or viewers in any way, shape, or form. It was like an empty desert out there, despite spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and the hiring of low-rated Chris Wallace. Why specifically do you have to? What does Chris Wallace have to do with this? That he decides
Fox? Because he left Fox.
I know, but like there's so many people. Yeah, well, that's my point. It's a vendetta. And let's just quickly point out, obviously, this is bad for CNN Plus, but like, dude, Trump, you launched Truth Social. Like, how's that going? Like, and you could do something about that. You don't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. You could like log on or something. So again, that's in the process of like folding while he's making fun of CNN Plus. But anyway, let's jump ahead. Brian Kilmeade was attacking regular CNN for talking about the Netflix stock story when CNN Plus is about to lose. Charles Payne says it's an unmitigated disaster. Also, the logo sucked. Tucker Carlson again chose to go in a Trumpian direction. Weird. Attacking Chris Wallace specifically. Greg Gutfeld did the same. No, this was everywhere on Fox was about CNN Plus. Brett, what do you think about this?
So there's two ways to look at it. One is what the long tail of CNN Plus is going to be, and you can acknowledge certain factors about the media landscape, or you can do the fun thing, which is to say CNN Plus lasted for a few weeks, and it sucked, and it was a bad idea, and it was ill-advised. There's a Fox Nation, but there's not a CNN Plus, and that's what the takeaway should be.
Sure.
Fox has doubled down on something that they've already argued in the court of law, which is they are entertainment, and they have the goal of fanning the base. They have their official feeling thing, and in a right-wing ecosphere where they're used to paying a Patreon to a psychopath, and also they want to give their money to something to get more of this content that isn't informative, but rather entertaining and tells them how to think.
Yeah,
that makes sense because that is the social media pay model of people on that also coincides with people on the right and the way right-wing media has gone in general. On the center of this CNN, both sides, no one's passionate enough about CNN specifically to fork over money, particularly for CNN. Now, if you look at the general like corporate umbrella of what's responsible for CNN, or CNN Disney Plus, or CNN Discovery Plus and HBO Max, Warner Media, well, that's the future of this. They're actually strategically, in a very Hollywood way, if you want to know how this all works in entertainment media, what always happens is you get one project greenlit, it takes a certain amount of time, and usually the people in charge of it get fired in the meantime, and that's why nothing happens in Hollywood, because everyone's held accountable for their stuff before it has a chance to materialize.
Yeah.
That's what happened to CNN Plus. It was ill-advised from the get-go, but on top of that, the general strategy from Warner Media, which owns all the people I listed, is to eventually have an all-in-one inclusive service that is essentially, and the reason CNN Plus failed is also the reason the Netflix is having some trouble. It's because the way what people look for in a subscription service is two things: new content that they like with faces that they love, and old faces that they like on the same streaming service. Now, Netflix, CNN Plus, neither of those can continue to offer Friends, Seinfeld, Parks and Recreation. Instead, that can only be offered by Universal, which owns NBC, which owns that property, or Warner's, which owns your Paramount and then and CBS and all that stuff. They all have giant corporate umbrellas, which at the beginning, before they had their stuff together, license it out. We need 3, 5, 10 years to figure out how to do the streaming service. So we'll get money from Netflix in the meantime to stream The Office. And then but that's how it works. And now they're like, all right, we got our streaming service together and we're gonna do an all-in-one inclusive situation to replace cable because they make more money per person off a streaming service if they can swing it than they would off cable because of the way that that's structured with other companies.
Yeah, and they've far higher amount of control over it. Yeah, so it'll come back probably in some form. You gotta know how long it'll take and how many, people won't be brought back on for those positions. Their life has been, flipped upside down, and so that's obviously not good. Fox doesn't care about that. Again, remember, they're populist. They care about regular people. They don't give a damn about all the people who've lost their jobs. They just think it's funny that Chris Wallace didn't get his show off the ground or whatever. Anyway. While it might come back in some form, I would say there's definitely some core stuff about CNN's philosophy that's gonna make it a little bit more difficult than it could be. What are you standing for? And by the way, it's not just you have to be some other form of non-news entertainment like Fox. There are other alternatives. Anyway, we'll see what form they eventually return in. With that said, though, we are running low on time, so we really have to jump into this. You let me know when we're ready to go, Sophie, okay? We're ready to go? It's the end of the week, and so it's time to take out the trash. Brett, who is your garbage person of the week?
My garbage person of the week is Mark Levin and Dave Rubin. So, John, you will get your crack at talking trash at these crackpots. Take a look.
Welcome back, America. One of the great observers of our culture is David Rubin, host of the Rubin Report. I want to go right to the classroom and the parents' movement. I want to go right to Disney and so forth. I feel like this has all just suddenly happened in the last 2 or 3 years, where it has become a civil right to sexualize 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and 7-year-olds. And I say to myself, shouldn't everybody be rising up against this, whether you're straight or gay or whatever you are? Isn't the point to leave little babies alone?
Well, the funny thing here, Mark, is while it feels like it just burst forth over the last 2 or 3 years, as you know, there's been a long march through the institutions. I mean, I think people can link a lot of this back to colleges and the Ivy Leagues in the 60s. But in the last 2 or 3 years, supercharged by algorithms, what's going on with big tech, a completely corrupt woke media that lies to us about everything and tells us 2 + 2 is 5, and that being non-racist is being racist, and that boys are girls and everything else. It suddenly seems that this is everywhere and it is relentless. So when you see all of these people screaming about this and saying this is somehow an assault on gay rights or something like that, it is 100% a lie. But Mark, I know that doesn't surprise you because you've been screaming about the lies of the left for far longer than I have.
Because I haven't really been screaming about the flaws of the left since they started paying me to.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's it.
By the way, when Mark Levin takes all that time just like complimenting Dave Rubin, and Dave Rubin does the same thing back to them, they would make incisive points if they had them. That's just pointless banter to fill time at that point because they don't really know what to say. Dave Rubin knows what his job is. He knows what he's paid for. He knows why he lives in such a nice house. It's to use the cred he has formerly supposedly being a leftist. By the way, as a guy who worked with him, he was never a well-educated, articulate, values-focused liberal. He was a guy looking for something that was gonna make him famous. He would have been perfectly happy, by the way, to be working for Disney hosting a show right now if that was the thing that would have made him a millionaire. Instead, he became a guy who's gonna trade the fact that he's a member of the LGBTQ community to whitewash another round of the right demonizing gay people. That's what he's there for. That's how he's gonna renovate his kitchen by helping them to demonize these people.
He's so sad. Yeah, and no one's sexualizing kids, you weirdos. Here's what happened. The left called out the right for being racist because they've been racist, and we can prove all the ways that they're racist. And when we call someone racist, they're talking about race and they're being racist. Now, they said, they turn that every time into, oh, why is everything with race with you? It's like, well, just the stuff I'm talking about is about race. They look for something worse than that they can also do. So they are thinking, what's worse than being called a racist? Being called a pedophile. And so they're gonna call every damn person a pedophile that they can, even Mickey frickin' Mouse, who has a makeout session at the end of every movie since like 1933.
So weird. Anyway, yeah, and to Mark Levin's prior question, why does it seem like this only came about in the last few years? Because you guys just made it up like a couple months ago, actually. It didn't exist as an issue before because it doesn't exist as an issue now. You just kind of like talking about it. Anyway, my garbage person of the week, I admittedly maybe is a little bit petty. Maybe you missed this. You know what Kirsten Sinema's been up to recently? As all these different crises are facing us, as the Democrats are racing towards electoral apocalypse, she ran the Boston Marathon earlier this week. It's been a long road to get here. I kept running qualifying marathons, but the pandemic and then a broken foot had other plans for me. Couldn't be more grateful to have 2 strong feet and 1 happy heart. This Boston Marathon. She put in a lot of work. She trained a ton. Why wouldn't she? She had the time. She wasn't working. She doesn't have obligations, responsibilities as a senator. She doesn't need to deal with the multiple crises facing our nation. She could just be off running and having fun and a grand time. And look, I know a lot of senators are just as bad in terms of not putting their time into crafting legislation, meeting with their constituents, talking to activists and all that stuff. But man, does she love to rub it in our face. She's got her little thing that she finished, her little outfit and everything. It seems like fun, Brett, to be a senator. Sure doesn't seem like a lot of work.
I'm not a big fan of her. She runs, she puts a lot of effort into physical activity and moving her body, but she puts no effort into actually moving the needle when it comes to accomplishing the things that her own constituents want her to accomplish.
Exactly. Like, and by the way, the only interaction with the constituents is theoretically practice for this. She runs away from young activists whenever she sees them.
There you go.
She's instantly out. So she's a sprinter. She does the marathons. She's a double threat, I guess. She's a threat athletically, and also she's a threat to your economic standing because she's gonna make sure that it never improves. She's basically just a roadblock, not in a marathon sense, but to getting rid of the filibuster, to getting Build Back Better passed, to dealing with the climate crisis, all these issues. She doesn't care about that. She doesn't have to take that seriously. She is just going to ride out a couple more years as a senator and then maybe become a lobbyist or something. What's the difference? She's gonna be a millionaire either way. So that's my garbage person. Let's see who you voted for. Your top 5 for this week after 38,000 votes. Coming in number 5 is JD Vance with 5% of the vote for courting the endorsement of America's Hitler. Yeah, he doesn't seem to be suffering any strike back for that, by the way, for that comment. Isn't that weird? Number 4 with 7% of the vote is Jared Kushner for flaunting his relationship with the Saudis to get massive amounts of money. Number 3 with 12% of the vote is the senator that Mallory McMorrow attacked in her viral video, accusing random people of grooming kids to make money, because that's what the right is. Number 2, and it's kind of a close one, 34% of the vote goes to Ron DeSantis for banning math books over critical race theory. But number 1, your garbage person of the week, 42% of the vote, is Greg Abbott for creating an artificial supply chain crisis and costing Texas $1 billion a day. Absolutely crazy. Thank you to everyone who voted. And thank you, Brett, for being here with us today. Always a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Everybody, please join us for Game Busters tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, where we build a utopia together.
You will finally be building that utopia.
And
I'm going to be joining. We will see. I'm going to be hanging out for the first hour of the Power Panel with Cenk Uygur and Jessica Burbank, so you're not going to want to miss that. Up next, though, is Indisputable, so don't go anywhere. But until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.